Welcome to Eye on Africa, France 24's program focused on the continent. I'm Charlie James, and here's what's coming up. 1 week to go before South Africa's elections, the ruling ANC facing several tough opposition parties. We'll spotlight one of the strongest, the EFF party. Olympic runner Caster Semenya loses her case to compete as a woman in all races. South African athlete vowing the court decision won't hold her back. And in the middle of conflict, an island in DR Congo's Lake Kivu is the only place untouched by militia groups. Now one couple is trying to attract tourists there. South Africa's general election gets underway in just 1 week. Nearly 50 parties are fielding candidates, and the stakes are high for the ruling ANC party. Today, we take a look at the country's second largest opposition party, the EFF, or Economic Freedom Fighters. Its leader, Julius Malema, held a rally on Wednesday, and he was as fired up as ever.
Julius Malema of the Economic Freedom Fighters Party, known as the EFF, will be reassured. With a week left before the general election, he drew a large crowd in Johannesburg's Alexandra Township. Malema regularly slams his former party, the ANC, for its failure to redistribute land from the white minority to the black majority. The 38-year-old leader of the nation's second-largest opposition movement vowed to do things differently in his usual controversial style.
When a white man wants to undermine you, you give him the last chance. You just say to him, repeat it, I didn't hear it properly. And if he does repeat, he will regret the day he was born.
Malema was expelled from the ANC in 2012 for sowing divisions. Many of his supporters are also former ANC members.
I decided to join EFF after seeing that for so long that I spent being a member of ANC, I see no progress at all. What they do is only promises that they don't fulfill.
The EFF obtained 6% of the vote in 2014 in its first run in a general election. Many analysts believe it will do much better in next week's poll.
South African runner Caster Semenya has lost a landmark legal case over testosterone levels. The sports world's highest court ruled Wednesday that if she wants to compete in certain events, she'll have to take medication to reduce her naturally high hormone level. Here's how Semenya's legal team reacted to the decision.
Well, Caster and we ourselves extremely disappointed in the outcome because it's not correct to have a law which plays out in a way that nobody knows yet until it does play out. And you can't have the person who makes the law also be the person implementing the law and deciding how it plays out. So that is not the way we see fairness.
Julian has more on the ruling, which could redefine what it means to be female in sport.
She's a star athlete, a double Olympic gold medalist and three-time world champion over 800 meters. But since her spectacular rise in 2009, from unknown South African teenager to winner of the World Cup, the 28-year-old runner's gender has come under scrutiny, with some claiming that higher levels of testosterone in her body give her an unfair advantage. Earlier this year, the International Association of Athletics Federation said that female runners with higher levels of the hormone should reduce it before they're allowed to compete. Caster Semenya filed an appeal against the rule, but on Wednesday, the Court of Arbitration for Sport rejected it.
The panel found that the DSD regulations are discriminatory, but the majority of the panel found that on the basis of the evidence submitted by the parties in the procedure, such discrimination is a necessary, reasonable and proportionate means of achieving the IAAF's objective of preserving the integrity of female athletics.
The athlete and her lawyers are considering contesting Wednesday's ruling. In a statement, Caster Semenya said that she would rise above the court's decision and continue to inspire athletes around the world. Sport has traditionally been divided into male and female categories, but Semenya's case suggests it may be an artificially binary distinction. The United Nations Human Rights Council said that sporting bodies should refrain from developing policies that force women and girl athletes into undergoing unnecessary, humiliating, and harmful medical procedures.
Standoff continues in Sudan between protesters and the ruling military council. Now the nation's main opposition leader has warned protest leaders against provoking the army, saying it will soon hand power to a civilian administration. Have a listen.
If we provoke the Islamic public opinion and provoke the armed forces which contributed to the change, we will be asking for trouble. I think, yes, they will hand over executive power to a civilian government if we present a credible, viable form of civilian government. Any dragging on will mean chaos, and that will mean giving all the ammunition to a possible counter-coup.
Meanwhile, the African Union has given Sudan's military rulers another 60 days to hand over power. Otherwise, they will face suspension. An earlier deadline of April 30th was already missed. Our correspondent in the capital, Julius Steers, sent us more details on the warning.
The political opposition leader's plea for cooperation with the Military Transitional Council came in a context where talks between the civilian and military side here in Khartoum seem to be breaking down around critical issues, including the level of representation from both sides on this joint council that is expected to take the country forward until elections here can be held. The African Union also weighed in on Wednesday. They said while they were disappointed that the Military Council failed to meet their original 15-day deadline to transfer power over to civilians, that they would give the country an additional 60 days to transfer that power. Otherwise, the country could face being expelled from the African Union. Here on the streets of the capital on Thursday, there are big protests planned. The civilian side, the protesters and political leaders are keen to keep the pressure on the Military Council to meet their demands. And of course, their primary demand is to move quickly toward that civilian-led government.
Finally, we take you to the Democratic Republic of Congo. As the nation's east struggles with conflict, there is an island in Lake Kivu that remains a haven of peace. Now, a former UN human rights official is trying to turn Ijwi Island into a tourist destination, one that respects its people and nature.
Nestled near Rwanda on Lake Kivu, the Congolese island of Ijwi is a small natural paradise. It's the only place in the region untouched by armed militia groups seeking to impose their rule on rural communities. Luc spent over a decade fighting for justice at the UN on behalf of victims of war crimes committed in the country. Today, with his wife Espérance, he has taken on a new mission, developing ecological and solidarity tourism in the DRC.
The potential of Ijwi Island is enormous. Here, there's no risk of being harassed or of being bothered by anyone. You climb on the peaks of the island. You're more than 2,500 meters high. You have views of Lake Kivu on the Congolese side, views of the Rwandan coast on the other.
Breathtaking views and the perfect climate for growing coffee. Many of Ijwi's inhabitants make a living through its harvest and production. The local cooperative buys coffee cherries from producers across the island.
Previously, our parents used to go to Rwanda to sell coffee, but as soon as we organized ourselves into a cooperative, we created a local market here at home.
Local markets have helped to develop another pride of Ijwi, its pineapples. They're harvested by a women's association led by the wife of the traditional chief, the Mwami. With its oranges, sweet potatoes, and bananas, the island is seen by some as an isolated paradise of tropical abundance in the heart of Lake Kivu. But the seclusion, the views, and the harvests come with a drawback. Here, there's no electricity grid.
Hospitals, hotels and hostels are connected to the internet all day long, and in the evening Wi-Fi is free for the rest of the community.
As modernization slowly trickles onto the island, some dream of becoming tour guides, a chance to show off their slice of paradise to eager tourists from around the globe. But to grow their hospitality industry, they'll have to climb over a bureaucratic hurdle and convince the DRC government to follow in Rwanda's footsteps and relax its restrictive visa policy.
That's all for this edition of Eye on Africa, but do stay with us here on France 24. There's more news coming up next.